which is good because you can come and sit here.
So should those plasmas be sent on the other sitting at the moment?
I hope that tonight's evening you will have a deeper understanding of the world of epilepsy and the challenges that over 2.5 million Americans face every day, and how we in this room tonight can affect change and make a difference on thousands and perhaps even millions of lives through the mission of tonight's dinner, the care and cure of epilepsy. My knowledge of seizures was really limited to the myth that if you have a seizure, someone could swallow their tongue. The basic definitions of seizures are a disruption of the brain's neurological activity. And epilepsy, in its kind of most basic form, is to have 2 or more seizures. So with this wide spectrum of definition comes a wide spectrum of conditions. From the person who's fully functioning, that lives a normal life, that's had 2 seizures but takes no medication and otherwise has no symptoms of epilepsy, to kids and people who struggle with epilepsy every day and have limited to no function. It's critical that people, especially children, get treatment at the onset of seizures, as seizures can have devastating effects on the developing brain. Locally here in Los Angeles, it can take up to 6 months to see a pediatric neurologist. This wait is unacceptable and the care part of our care and cure mission. As part of the proceeds, we'll go to fund a 3-year pediatric fellowship locally. Another portion of the proceeds will go to the cure part, and we will fund epilepsy research. And lastly, a portion of the proceeds goes to the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Los Angeles to support all of the wonderful things that they do.
Our involvement results from the fact that our oldest daughter, Chloe, suffers from epilepsy. You will all see and hear more about her and Mark's son, Ari, in a video we've put together for you. But to give this all more of a more direct, personal perspective, I want to briefly share, about 5 minutes, share my family's story with you. And here's really what it is. Because many have asked me, and I want to make it really, really clear how I got to this place. Nicole and I are blessed with 3 beautiful kids. Chloe, 8, is the oldest, and she is the one who suffers from epilepsy. Jake, 6, and our youngest daughter, Alexandra, is 3. Our oldest, Chloe, was born under extremely adverse circumstances. Although Nicole was at full term when Chloe was born, days before our due date, she felt, actually, a lack of fetal movement. That prompted her to drive to the OB on her own. There was no monitor that she had at the house. She just said to herself, it was mother's intuition, get down to the OB. That ended up being one of the ultimate mother's intuition moments, for we would actually later learn that the decreased fetal movement was the result of a ruptured blood vessel in the placenta. And had we not undergone an immediate C-section, Chloe frankly would not have survived. But after 3 weeks in the NICU, with the first 2 weeks filled with all of those, stories of doctors taking you into the side room and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Gumpert, we regret to inform you, fill in the blank, and you know what they were telling us, Chloe survived. And she survived, but there's definitely some adverse conditions that she has to live with and that we as a family have to live with. Due to the blood loss from that blood vessel rupturing, Chloe's brain was deprived of needed oxygen. The resulting brain injury has led to many, many complications for her. Her general diagnosis, some of you may have heard the term, is called cerebral palsy, okay? But germane to this evening in particular is the fact that her brain injury directly led to her being an epileptic, and that is having seizures, as Mark just explained before. Chloe started having seizures about 2 hours after she was born, and she has had them every single day of her life, usually about 10 to 20 seizures a day, and that's just what it has been. These seizures, they're a constant source of anxiety. You have to imagine they would be for any parent. As a parent, you only want what's best for your child. You want to help them overcome all of the obstacles that life throws at them. But in this case, it's clearly beyond frustrating and saddening to feel helpless and powerless to stop the seizures. And there are medications which help a little, but they're not a total cure-all. Many of the anti-epileptic drugs that are available on the market today, they come with numerous side effects. And over the course of the evening, you may hear about diets. There's a high-fat content diet called the ketogenic diet, which works in some cases. And there's also a medical implant device that some people have had success with. But none of these are a full cure-all. At least for many people, they're not. Some people get lucky, and they are. But in others, they merely mitigate the number of seizures and the intensity of the seizures that one may have. So in our case, as a parent with an epileptic child, you're never really free from that fear that the next seizure could be bigger, could be more severe than the last. You're forever glued, frankly, to a BlackBerry or a cell phone, hoping the next call is not from a paramedic saying that your son or daughter is being transported to the ER because the seizure they just had has caused them to stop breathing. That happened once with us years ago. So in addition to these immediate fears, there's then the looming fear of the unknown. How badly is each seizure insulting my daughter's brain? Is she learning as quickly as she might have without the seizures? We don't know. If Nicole and I are right, and Chloe averages only 10 seizures a day, that's obviously 3,650 seizures a year. And with her now 8.5 years old, that's over 31,000 seizures in her life. And I was writing this out and I said to myself, 31,000, and those are the ones we've seen. There's probably plenty we haven't seen. So I'm always concerned about the number and the fact that these could easily be painful. And you may ask, well, how do you know? Chloe does have cerebral palsy. Those of you who know her may know she's in a wheelchair and she's nonverbal. She can vocalize, but she doesn't use words and speak the way we do. But there was once a moment with the assistance of augmentative communication where she did signal to us through a device that she was feeling pain, and a second later she had a seizure. So it does suggest, my God, has it been all 31,000 times that have put her in pain? I don't know, but it breaks my heart to think that there was even one time that she was in pain. So clearly no one should have to suffer like this. And with each seizure, there is some permanent harm to the growing brain. And then there's the impact on the balance of the family, especially siblings who vie for your attention, since you find yourself regularly telling them that their afflicted sibling, Chloe in my case, needs her medication or some kind of other extra assistance. This time away from the other kids leads them to wonder, am I important? Where do I fit into this mix? I have a 3-year-old who literally will say to me and ask me, Chloe's having a seizure, Daddy, don't you have to give her medicine? No 3-year-old should have to ask that question and notice that. In a world where seizures were eradicated, my 3-year-old simply wouldn't be in that situation. And my 6-year-old Jake, who's basically about this high, and is about as tall as Chloe when she's in her wheelchair, and he loves to walk next to his sister. Whenever we go into a restaurant, he's always right there next to her, proud brother. He wouldn't be in the direct line of sight of all the people who are looking at us come in. And inevitably what will happen, in a new environment, Chloe will get startled and have a seizure. So Jake's right there, and all those eyes, you can imagine, they just turn. And there's that little guy, and he's seeing all these people look at him. Yes, it's not to him. They're probably looking at seizure, but in the eyes of a 6-year-old, he's the one receiving those stares. So these are all the sub-issues that a family, dealing with an epileptic family member will have to deal with. And my story is just one. I'm just one person, okay? In the U.S. alone, there's about 326,000 children afflicted with epilepsy. 90,000 of them are like my daughter, where they can't be completely treated with medications or other alternative remedies. And we expect about 45,000 new pediatric epilepsy cases each year. So if we look at the total U.S. population, there's about 3 million Americans who suffer from epilepsy. And that's more than the aggregate. When I say the aggregate, the total number of people suffering from cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis, and Parkinson's. So if you sit back and think about it, this is a huge, huge number of people. So with that as a background, it's probably pretty obvious why Nicole and I have pledged to do all we can to eradicate this very, very terrible condition. Our involvement with the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Los Angeles is based on our sincere belief that the #1 mission of the EFGLA to prevent, control, and cure epilepsy must be accomplished.